Welcome back to Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, resilience, emergency management, COVID, well-being, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there, and I do respond to everything I get. Alternatively, you can find me at alexfullick.com. Today is part 2 of my discussion with Phil Lambert. We are going to continue our discussion today about the challenges for new resilience and business continuity management professionals. So Phil, welcome back for part 2 of our discussion.
Thank you, Alex. It's again an honor to continue our conversation. It was pretty lively the first time, and hopefully it's going to be just as lively this time as well.
Oh, I'm sure it will. Now, let's just naturally jump into what we were going to talk about at the end of part 1, and that is skill sets.
Okay.
What kind of skill sets do new people in the business continuity and resilience industry need to be aware of?
You know, that's a pretty tough question, actually, because
it sounded simple.
well, yeah, I mean, we can definitely throw that out there, right? But skill sets. I don't know how many skill sets someone needs to have when they first start. I can tell you some of the skill sets they should be working on as they're beginning to do, the planning of business continuity. And I'll get to those in a minute. But I think that before skill sets comes mindsets, and before mindsets come the fundamentals. So if I was to talk to a brand new practitioner, which I do all the time, I say the first thing that you really need to do before you jump in is to learn the fundamentals. Because again, most of us were enlisted into doing business continuity. Basically, our command was, can you update our plans? Because they're really old and we need somebody to update the plans.
Yeah.
So they go out and they take a look at the plans and they kind of make some sense of it. Maybe not as much as we would like to have, but we at least make some, okay, we can, and they just start updating the plans rather than really having the basic fundamentals. The fundamentals are important in science, art, sports, I mean, anything and everything. When you know the fundamentals, you can participate at a much, much higher level. So the first thing that I believe a new practitioner should learn would be the fundamentals. I can tell you that the fundamentals can come from all different directions. And we have best practices, we have standards, and we have regulations. Those are the 3 main categories where you can find some fundamentals and methodology. But methodology is different than the fundamentals. The methodology is actually how you implement what you know about the fundamentals. Okay, so a little bit different there. But the first thing that, if I was to look at a mindset or a skill set or any of these other kind of things, I would say the first mindset that one would have is that you're committed to make it happen. And it starts with updating the plans. If that's been your, your marching orders per se, then, you can start with the plans, getting to know the plans and so forth and so on. Because I find that, especially with as much information on the internet as there is about business continuity, disaster recovery, crisis management, vendor continuity, again, putting all of that under one umbrella called business continuity. There's more. You can sit here and for months research what this thing all about and not even take the first step forward. And if you like it like I do, I love to do that. I mean, I could do that for days on end, researching a particular topic or subject or something like that. But I will tell you that what I have learned over the years is that execution trumps knowledge every time. And if I'm been enlisted and I've been told to update these plans, and I'm just getting familiar with the plans itself, how much confidence do we have in going out into the business units? Hey, let's update your plans. And I mean, you're pretty timid. At least I was, for sure.
Mhm.
and pretty cautious because you don't want to be shown as making mistakes or crazy or nutsos or whatever, people are going to think of you. So the first thing that I would have as a mindset is be committed to make it happen. And I wouldn't say that committed within the first month or even 2 months or even 6 months. I would say take your time, and priority number 1 is to learn the fundamentals. That's
Mm.
priority number 1. And part of that is getting familiar with the plans, but also, learning what the fundamentals are. The fundamentals would be, what is a disaster timeline? What is the sequence of most all disasters or crises? What does the resiliency landscape look like? What does the organizational landscape look like? What are the essentials of business continuity? And different things like that. So these are just the basic fundamentals. What makes a good plan? What makes a good response? Um, what is risk appetite for a particular organization? What is their organizational culture about everything? I mean, if I was just given the update to plans, do I have everybody on board, or do I got to fight for people's attention? Different things like that. So
Or you could be in my shoes. When I was first told to update a plan, I
yeah,
didn't even know what a plan was. You want
exactly.
me to update what?
Yeah,
What is that?
yeah. And again, we think of business when we first think of business continuity, we think of the fire drills we had in elementary school. Oh yeah, I can do that. And then you
Yeah.
start researching and then, whoa, much more complicated than I thought. The second thing to do, I think, the second thing to do is really to adopt mindsets. And then after that, we want to hone our skills. Because to start out by saying, well, you should have this skill and that skill and so forth and so on, I think is getting ahead of the game. We'll learn those because I would even say that the different organizational cultures would in some ways demand different skill sets
Mhm. That's
because
true. Yeah.
again, execution is the name of the game. It's not how much you know. It's not being the smartest person in the room, although that's kind of cool. I've never had that happen to me, but but I was probably more thing is to adopt that commitment to make it happen. I mean, make sure that as you learn things, you begin working with others to make it happen because you're not going to be able to do this all by yourself anyway. And that leads into step number 2 is get a little bit advisory team, not a committee, not a business continuity committee or a board no, just get a couple of people who believe in what you're doing just to sit down and have coffee with every couple of weeks or something. It doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to have a formal committee or charter or anything. Just get a couple of people who you can sit down and just talk things within your own organization. And I
Mhm.
call it my advisory team. And then I mature my advisory team over time because I'll grow it with the people in the business units and so forth. So it's my advisory team. And I would also begin looking for a couple of people, hopefully within your local area, and if not, well, anywhere, because now you can do virtual, and we're all used to that, is to find somebody outside of your company that can kind of help you, not in a mentoring relationship, but just to be there maybe to answer questions, support, encourage, and different things like that. So that would be step number 2 is put an advisory.
Would that be kind of like joining a local chapter of something and then just getting to
Yeah.
know somebody that
Yeah. Yeah,
attends as
if you
well?
got a local association, oh yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I remember that's one of the first things I did, and it's kind of a funny story. I was the newsletter editor when I left the first meeting that I went to. So, but anyway, I mean that was 100 years ago. But yeah, look for help. Don't try to think that you can stand this thing up for yourself. You can, or a lot of people would be able to do that to a certain degree, but it's a lot easier and a lot more fun when you get some other people on board with you.
Mhm.
Whether they're, and I'm not saying form a business continuity team. If you already got a team, again, that's going to be really great. And then the third thing, I think, so the first would be commitment to make it happen. Second would be put a small advisory team together, maybe 1, 2, or 3 people internal, and if you can find some people external, associations, something like that. And then the third thing is set right expectations for yourself. Because I noticed that a lot of people will set these real high, I'm gonna update these plans and, all these, and it's that It's that adrenaline we get when we take that first step in a new journey, and all
Yeah.
that. Sooner or later, we're hitting walls and all that, all that adrenaline's gone 2 weeks into the process, right? So set realistic expectations. If you think it's going to take a month, take 2 months. If you think it's going to take 3 months, take 6 months. And if you finish faster, this is one of the things I learned about meetings and so forth, is that if I have an hour meeting and I done in 40 minutes, I got a lot of people who are pretty doggone happy with me, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
never go over, I always stop short. So it's the same thing with my own goals. So if I say I'm going to do something in 2 weeks, and this is what I'm communicating with everybody, and I'm done in 6 weeks, how much better do we look? Because we're getting it done before we had committed. So our expectations is that we smartly commit to what we can do, we understand what we can't do, and get those people around us who's going to help us work through all of those different issues within the organization itself. So skill sets, I do have a couple of them. Competencies is what I call them. This is a big one. Dealing with ambiguity and change. Yeah, you might not be able to hang around long if you can't deal with ambiguity, because there is a lot of unknowns. I mean, if you just think about the organizations and all the functions and processes, I mean, they hire people to do these functions like payroll or facilities or manufacturing or whatever. And everyone out there is hired for certain skill sets and so forth. We think that because we're working in business continuity, we kind of, we don't feel like we have to know all of that kind of stuff, but we have to kind of be familiar with all of that. But I don't even know if that's necessary. We have to engage with the people so that they know what the business continuity process is all about for their particular stuff. So dealing with ambiguity and kind of moving forward, even being uncertain on what's true.
Just to add a point to that,
Yeah.
I remember telling somebody that, I don't need to know how you do everything. I just need to know what you do.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
how is up to you. I'm not going to become, using your example, a payroll specialist. So
Right.
how you do it, that's you. That's your realm.
Yep. Yep. And what's the outcomes? And what are your dependencies? I got to know your dependencies.
Yeah. Yeah,
For sure.
exactly.
Right? Yeah. Sponsoring change. Now, there's change agents, there's change champions, and there's change sponsoring change. And basically, it's sponsoring change. That's a skill that is high in demand right now. Some people know a little bit about change. A lot of people resist change, including me, because we don't want to change until the pain's so bad that it's less painful moving forward.
So I have to.
Exactly. And so sponsoring change or being a champion of change. How's it go? It goes anticipate, stimulate, and embrace change. Anticipate changes coming from someone else, stimulate the changes that you think that need to occur, and then embrace change when it comes from any direction. So anticipate, stimulate, and embrace change is kind of the philosophy that I use and teach. I think effective communications is a no-brainer. I don't know anybody. I think everyone should take communications classes on a regular basis. And I've read a lot of books on that kind of stuff. And then the last one, I guess, if I want to just throw it out there, is teamwork. You have got to know how to collaborate with others, reach a decision, and then move together forward as a team. Not so much me and the team, but other people and the team that they put together. You have to be that facilitator for teamwork. So if you wanted to really learn how to do your job well, it's all about facilitating what I call teams of teams. Business continuity, disaster recovery, everything is all about team of teams. There's a whole lot of teams out there, and each team is a dynamic entity all by itself, but yet all these teams put together the whole, and that's how you respond to an event.
Yeah, and they've all got their own priorities and things they need to focus on, and we have to bring them together to see that they're on the same level.
You mean they don't have my priority?
BCM as the same level of priority for them,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not easy.
Um, yeah. So teamwork, collaboration, I think is huge. And being a referee sometimes in those teams, as you were just saying, is a good skill to
Yeah,
have.
meetings are always fine.
Yeah, you were saying priorities, and I go, you mean they don't adopt my priorities? Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everybody,
Gee.
different teams. This is what I have to focus on. And everything else is, much further down the list.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
with business continuity, it's like, well, no, it's for all of you. You've all got to see this as a priority or something key, because all it takes is for 1 weak link, and then things that were working suddenly aren't. So,
Yep.
we do have to work together, and it's for everybody's livelihoods.
It is. It is. I
So,
think
go ahead. Sorry.
I think I used that illustration. You just brought me back to what I used to tell people in the onboarding business continuity class. Because I used to be able to, everyone coming on board, I'd talk for an hour on business continuity and what that all was about. And I said, hey, how many people would still like to get paid when you came to work and you saw a smoking hole where your building used to be? I didn't have anybody not raise their hand. So it is everybody's job in the sense. So you're absolutely right.
Now you know how important all this is.
Exactly. And I got them engaged at least for 10 minutes on that, right? So
let's jump to the next one.
Okay.
And I wanted to talk about certifications.
Okay.
Certifications are great, but they can take a long time to obtain. So what information is out there for new people in the profession to work towards that, to move their career forward?
Okay. Well, I know off the top of my head 5 different certifications. The 2 Mama Jamas that I kind of use that term, Mama Jamas, the 2 most popular, the 2, kind of worldwide is the BCI certification and the DRI certifications.
Yeah.
There are others. It does take time to learn these things. You do have to take tests in both of those, and then you have to take continuing credits for the rest. I'm not sure about the other ones, what their programs look like beyond that first certification, whether you can hang on to it or whatever. But I think for the new person, I think that going for the certification is fine. I mean, it's great to have letters after your name. I have both of those, by the way, both of those certifications.
Me too.
And it's great in the employment realm, but not so great when you're working within your own business, because they don't look at those, and they want to know how you're engaging in the process, the people in the business unit. That's why I think engagement is so much more important. So for the new person, I would find a methodology that you believe in, one that you like, one that is easy to implement. And then I would stick with that methodology for 2 years. And what I mean by methodology is it's either best practice, a standard, or a regulation. And you can start with any one of those. You might want to review 2 or 3 different ones or whatever. If you're not in a regulated industry, you can look at the standards, which is ISO 22301 to start. And then now there's others coming along, and then the FISA 1600 as well. So those are the 2 standards that are most popular. There's some other standards out there as well, especially in IT where they mention business continuity. Last time I looked, there was actually 71 regulations that mentioned business continuity just here in the United States. 71 regulations. Yeah, last time I looked, now was 4 or 5 years ago. So they pass laws every day because they feel like that's what they need to do, and so we have to pay attention to those kind of things. So find a methodology that you like, and then learn that well. When I first started, just to be honest, I took the DRI class for 2 weeks, started working that methodology and so forth, and then I heard about BCI and their methodology, and this is going back 22 years ago, 23 years ago. And it seemed like that because they experienced more disasters over there long time ago. I mean, we're experiencing more disasters now than ever, right? As far as organizations are concerned here in America or North America. Over in the UK and over in that area, they've been, for the last 200 years, they're having disasters all the time, much more so than we have here. So it seemed like that they were much more advanced. I think they're even now. I wouldn't pick one over the other. I think one's a little bit more simpler than the other. I think both of them carry a lot of, I mean, they'll tell you what needs to happen, but neither one will tell you how to go about doing it. And that's a huge difference. And I'll get in a little bit more on that. So I would pick one methodology, and then I would pretty much study that one methodology. There's a lot of different websites that you can go and get information. The DRJ doesn't have a methodology, but they have probably the most information on their website about business continuity. Continuity Central probably is equal or almost as equal. So DRJ's here in America, Continuity Central is over in the UK. Great guy, David is a great guy. And then the new one is the Resiliency Hub. Is another place that you can go and really get information. Okay. So if you pick one methodology, I'd keep going back to that website. I would find other people who are certified in those and start, back on that advisory team, just getting other people to help you through this thing, whatever methodology you're looking at least for the first 2 to 3 years, I would pretty much just focus on that one methodology. That's what I did, and that's what it worked, because everything else was kind of confusing to me. Once I learned this fundamental, go ahead, you're going to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, when there was too much information coming from many different directions, then I found, well, what am I supposed to do? I found myself getting more confused.
Exactly.
When I stuck to one, and we followed it through, and what we were doing actually fit our culture. The one that we stuck with fit the organizational culture.
Oh, good.
That helped. And then when I got good at that, I started to understand better some of the other different ways of doing things. I became adaptable, much more agile and adaptable.
Yeah. Well, you definitely want to expand your learning, but getting that, learn the fundamentals, going back to committed to making it happen, learn a little bit, implement it, learn a little bit, implement it, because it's in the implementation that you're going to learn tons more than you ever would from any book. And there's quite a few books out there, any kind of courses. As a matter of fact, the BC Primer course that I generated is all about you go through the course once, and then you have pretty much about 5 to 6 months to implement it and go back to the course to kind of rehash some of what you've learned before, right? Because it's only when you're implementing it that it really becomes part of who you are as a person. So again, going back to that confusion, if you do get confused, go back 2 steps to where you were not confused and just kind of move a little bit forward. Because again, if you are confused, what happens? You don't move. As you just said, if I'm confused, I don't have the confidence to move forward, so I stand still. And that's what we don't want. So find something that's fairly simple to implement if you can, and execute on that. And then I think that part of the certification, definitely if you're looking for a job, people do look for people who are certified. I will tell you that. People who are hiring look for people who are certified. I think equally important, if not, I'd just say equally important. I don't want to qualify this in any other way. Build relationships in the industry. Build relationships first within your organization. That's why I say have an advisory team of 1 or 2 people, because they can introduce you to people that they know within the organization. Because again, business continuity, disaster recovery, crisis management, vendor continuity is a team sport. It's not just one person doing something. It is a team sport. So I think that the one thing that I'm seeing now in the younger generation actually is branding themselves as a person and a professional first before a lot of the other things in their life, especially in the business realm. And you do that by building relationships with people. Again, if you find one or two people outside of your organization that's going to help you through that first year or two, great, maintain that relationship. And and even ask them the question, hey, I'm really looking to do a BIA next. Do you know anybody that can really help me to do a BIA, or anybody else that I can get kind of a difference of opinion, kind of thing, or whatever? Definitely go to the association meetings. When I first started, there were 6 conferences because all the vendors were doing their own conferences, and I went to all of them.
Mhm.
All of them. And I can tell you that there were 3 people that if they were speaking, I was in their room, period. I don't care what they were speaking. I just saw their name and go, hey, Mark Carroll is one of them, actually, when he worked for Gillette way back when. Every time Mark Carroll spoke, I was in his room. He just really helped me to simplify some of the stuff that is pretty complex here in the beginning of my career. So I do recommend certifications, by the way. I don't know if you need to really be in a hurry for it. I do know that there are a lot of job openings out there and being certified. But if let me just kind of say this. I'm not quite sure how to put it. If you have letters after your name, then you have earned them. And because you have earned them, they're expecting you to do a certain level job.
Mhm.
And some of the certifications are much more easier to obtain with a lot less experience and so forth, but don't be afraid of waiting 2 or 3 years. And then, I mean, you can take the test anytime, but all of them wanting at least 2 years worth of experience before you can actually be certified.
Yeah.
Beyond the apprentice level or something similar. So anyway.
Yeah, agreed. It takes time to get those things. My first certification didn't come until 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
By the time I met, the criteria, the one that I was shooting for,
Yeah.
it took time to get. And when I had those letters, I knew I had the experience behind it. I think if that's something you want to work towards, you have to know it takes time.
Yes.
You can't work in a job for 1 year and then say, okay, now I'm fully certified. Sorry, my brother is a licensed mechanic, and it took him years to be able to get to that point.
Yep.
where he lives. He's sought
Yep.
after by
Yes.
many people because he knows so much.
Yep. And even though when we first start, we think this is pretty easy, it does get pretty complex. I think one of the new things that is kind of percolating at the top, I don't know if we've really talked about it much, is that you're a specialist just in business continuity. You're a specialist just in disaster recovery. You're a specialist just in crisis management. You're a specialist just in vendor continuity and emergency response, or the emergency action plan as well. So those are 5 different disciplines. And 10 years ago, we were doing them all. Every single one of them. I mean, 1 or 2 people in a whole Fortune 500 company was doing all of that stuff. And that just, and I'm glad to see that organizations are hiring people with these different disciplines, because it needs to be what I call a tapestry, all of these different threads coming all together and painting a beautiful picture of the organization.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, at Ripcord, we used to say, we want to help you softly land when you get pushed out of an airplane.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. So that was Ripcord. So we're going to help you pack the chute. We're going to help you pack the chute so that you can have a ripcord to pull when the time happens. So, yeah, I think it's a great opportunity right now to be in this. I think it's even more of an opportunity for those who are new, because I'm hoping that we're going to raise the bar for the new people coming in, and rather than, as I mentioned last time, rather than being stewards of value, we're going to be value creators for our organizations.
It's interesting what you just mentioned, back in the day where business continuity was doing the disaster recovery, the crisis management, et cetera. And now those kind of areas have their own industries, their own certifications and everything. I've currently working with one place that does have that, which is fantastic. They've got people that are really focusing on IT disaster recovery, focusing on crisis management, emergency response. And yet they've all tried on some level to pull business continuity into things and get a proper business continuity program or practice implemented, and everyone has failed. And then I came in, and when we were talking, I could actually understand what the IT DRP guy was saying. I understood what crisis management was saying, emergency management, and I was pulling them all together, and they're going, how do you know so much stuff? Because they're only seeing it from their own industry. And I said, business continuity. I said, when I started, it was everything. I said, so I had to learn everything. And because of that, I still keep myself up on all those different disciplines as well, which makes, after a while, and maybe it's something to work towards, instead of just being someone who updates a plan, you start becoming the hub of the wheel rather than one of the spokes.
Exactly. Yep.
Yep.
I think we needed to be an advocate for all of those disciplines,
as
well as the bridge that brings all these things together. Because again, it's a team of teams, right? And not one team is more important than the other. It's when we equally have these things all come together that you actually have a resilient organization.
Yeah, I tell everybody that as well. It's like nobody's more important than anyone. We're all connected. We all have to help each other, to create success for ourselves. So
exactly.
Great. Well, I'm glad you didn't say anything bad of certifications, because I'm a certification commissioner. So for one of those organizations you identified. So I didn't say a lot about it.
Well, I think that they're I mean, I have my own. I've always stayed certified. I got certified when I first started, and then BCI came like 10 years later or something like that. And I maintain my certification. I do think it's important, but that's not the end all either. That's only the beginning of one's career, is when you first get certified. And there are different levels of certification and different specialties of certification as well, which I'm glad to see. Again, just what we were just talking about. But there's a certain self-confidence too that comes in certifications. I mean, it's just not for the, to get more money or, instill confidence in others. It instills confidence even within yourself when you know that you're certified. You got these letters, you have passed that exam, and people do talk to you, and you know what you're talking about, as you just said.
Yeah. Okay, enough on certifications here. I know I have other opinions on certifications, but I'm not going to air them here. So let's jump to the last thing we wanted to touch on is what resources are available for new professionals? Because we've kind of alluded to bits and pieces of information that's out there. But if you're new, you don't know what's out there, what's available to you. So what is available to someone new?
Well, BCI, DRI, both have courses, live courses, or now hybrid courses where it's live online, and on-demand courses, meaning it's on demand. You take it as quick as you want to. It's all recorded and all these other kind of things as well. I actually don't know anyone who has taken those. Everyone kind of leans toward the live facilitated ones.
I've taken one or two of the 2-day online type stuff.
Oh, okay.
It's recorded.
Okay. So, I mean, you can speak to how good those are. I just don't know. But I know they're available for people.
Yeah. They were okay. I would have preferred, I think, to have had some sort of a hybrid approach, to interact with people and share ideas.
Right.
But they were okay. They met my needs.
Okay. There's several books out there. I don't know if you want me to recommend certain books or not, but I know that there are books.
I have 8 people can go to.
Say it again. Yeah, yeah.
I
There you
have
go.
8 of them.
You got 8 books that people can actually go to, and again, I'm really looking toward the beginner and things like that. I
Yeah.
learn more from participating and talking with others versus reading, although I read a lot. And I'll read parts and then I'll start implementing and then I'll read another part or go back and read over and over and I highlight, I put sticky notes. I mean, I just eat up the books, kind of thing. It's
Yeah,
just
me
kind of
too.
who I am. Like I say, the DRJ website has tons and tons of stuff. They've been around a very, very long time, and I think they keep everything. So, and they
Yeah.
do webinars every Wednesday. I think one of the things that when you're online, you want to, and this is one reason why I say pick a methodology and stick with it for a while, is because you want to know where that information is coming from. I can tell you that all the vendors will give you all kinds of free information, but understand that it's coming from vendors and they have an ulterior motive, right? They want to sell some stuff. And there's nothing wrong with selling stuff. I think tools are important. I think every company, even if they don't have a business continuity program, ought to have a notification system. Every company. Anybody who's got over 50 people in their organization should have a notification system. They're cheap, inexpensive, but yet they communicate like you wouldn't believe, right?
Right.
So, so DRJ, again, Continuity Central and Resiliency Hub by the Rainies. It's fairly new and it's growing. I kind of like that because there's not old information in there anymore, where
Yeah.
some of the others, I think it's still, still out there and you can find it depending on how you're, what you're searching for and so forth. LambertLearning.com is a new one that's coming up. That's my website, LambertLearning.com. The blog is beginning to grow. I've put over, I kind of counted them, during COVID, how many actual seminars, webinars, workshops, presentations that I've made, and it's well over 200 in this industry. And I have them all still as well. Not all recorded, but I do have them all still there. So we're beginning to throw some things out there. Again, I really want to focus on the novice, the beginner, the entry-level person, to really help them to have the what I call the tactics, the tools, and the training to keep them as business continuity planners for 5 years on out, because I think it's an awesome career and we need new people for sure.
Yeah, that's definitely something that came out where you and I were talking at Continuity Insights in Louisville last month. That there are, even when you looked around the room, you could see that there were very few newbies. So to use today's terminology for someone new, newbies in the room. A lot of people knew each other. A lot of people were chatting about their roles, but how does a new person, someone maybe fresh out of university or someone who recently has been voluntold to take over business continuity, it's hard for them to reach out and find someone or an organization that can actually help them without ending up following a vendor or something.
Right. Well, Continuity Insights is more focused on senior, or not senior, but seasoned, what I call them. And as you just mentioned, I call them dinosaurs. I consider myself a dinosaur, been around so long, right? And there's a lot of them at Continuity Insights. They're all great. They're all my peers and friends. We've grown up together, in the industry. But they did take a survey, and I think it was 77 or 78% of the people there had 5 or more years of experience. ERJ takes that same survey at the first session or between the first and second session of the conference itself, and is absolutely reversed. 60% of the people, this is their first conference ever in business continuity, right? So again, it depends on, if you're new, look for those things that are focused on beginners, not seasoned, because I think that as a beginner, you would get a lot more out of the DRJ than the Continuity Insights, but I'll recommend both, kind of thing. And conferences are great because There you um, there you learn a lot of differences of opinion, but more importantly, you're sitting next to people who probably have the same questions that you do, and you're able to ask them. Some of them will have less experience than you, some of them more experience, but I mean, they're all over the place in all different kinds of industries. And as you well know, even industries have a little bit different way of doing business continuity as well. So
Yep.
that would be a resource is the conferences themselves. And DRJ has two, one in March and one in September. The next one's in September in Scottsdale. Awesomely great site there. And I just found out that the one in March is now changing venues, believe it or not, because he's been at the same venue for like 10 or 12 years, and we're changing venues in Orlando next year. So I'm really looking forward to that. Everybody got tired of the old one. So, but again, it was still a great conference to be there.
Yeah. Well, then there's other organizations like Association of Contingency Planners,
Yep,
ACP.
ACP. Yep.
There's, I know of one, I'm doing a presentation for them in July, Business Recovery Planners Association.
Yep.
Business Recovery Managers. I forgot if it's professionals or association or something like that, but there's a bunch of these little things, and some of them are just local, but they do have local people. Sometimes it might not be easy at these big conferences to reach out to somebody and talk to someone who actually lives in New York when you're working in LA.
Right.
Sometimes that doesn't work, but if you can find a local chapter, then sometimes you can talk to someone. If I'm living in Toronto, I can find someone in Toronto to talk to, because they'll understand how Toronto works, and where things are. So sometimes just having the same reference points helps stimulate conversations as well.
Well, I call them regional conferences because it's usually a much smaller geographical area that people are coming from. ACP is a nationwide, international actually, because they're in Canada as well. And then you have somewhere between, last time I counted, 5 to 8 different one chapter in like San Francisco has Burma, I believe it's called. I know the New England has emergency manager or something, IAS and something or another up in there. And so you have these locals. So check in business continuity associations near you, and hopefully you'll be able. And now, because of COVID, most of them are doing things virtually. So you don't have to be local. Like if I wanted to sit in, say Burma's presentation in San Francisco, then more likely I'm going to get a link sooner or later and be able to watch it, the same as just being in San Francisco itself. So I think we're going to be much more connected moving forward.
So hopefully everyone took note of some of those organizations, and they can look into, especially if they're new and they're struggling to find information. I hope they take a look. We're coming to the end of the show, Phil. So I'm wondering, do you want to take a minute or two with any final thoughts on anything you'd like to convey for new professionals and that are getting into the industry?
Sure. Well, I think this is to everybody, actually, and even some of my peers. I think that right now we're faced with a pretty large problem within our industry, and that there is not enough people for the number of jobs out there. And you can blame COVID for it. You can say that it's the great resignation era, but we had this problem before pandemic ever even showed up. There was just more jobs out there, especially seasoned jobs, people who were looking for people with 5 to 8 years of experience or even more. And we just don't have enough people to fill them. I think the root cause of that is because there's such a high turnover when people first start. As I mentioned, if you can think about it just for a second, I'm enlisted into doing this business continuity. I already have a full-time job, by the way, within the organization, and they didn't take those responsibilities away from me. They go, hey, can you do business continuity? Well, sure. Update plans, evacuation drill. Sure, I can do that. That's going to be easy, right? And then they dive down into it, and it's not so easy. Number one, it becomes, and especially if you Google business continuity and you don't know anything, you'll be more confused 30 minutes later than you were before you typed in the word, right? So, and when you're confused, as we just mentioned, we don't do anything. We're just frozen where we're at.
Yeah.
So I think the industry needs to take a focus at the novice, the entry-level people, and adopt them. If I can use that term. I think we need to do a better job of enrolling them into the industry, being there for them. I know mentoring is not good for them, but there are other programs that we can implement that are similar to mentoring that would be great for beginners to be a part of for the first couple of years. I think the associations that we just talked about can put together different kind of programs that would focus on the entry-level person so that they do have a place to go. I think my peers, if you ever meet somebody who is new in business continuity, befriend them immediately and hang out with them as much as you can in the conference. When you see them, go up to them. When you see them, 4 or 5 steps in front of you, run up to them and say, "Hey, how's it going? You got any questions?" Or, "Hey, how can I," might want to ask, "How can I encourage you?" But that's what you want to do, is you want to encourage them to stay in this. Because again,
Yeah.
when I'm implementing business continuity and I already have a full-time job and nobody else in the company wants to participate in anything that I want to do, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to minimize it, right? I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go back to my full-time job I get paid
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
And so without the proper training, without the proper support, without people really helping to support these people, I think we're going to continue to have a high turnover. And that's what I want to eliminate, is the high turnover within business continuity, because I think a lot more people would enjoy it if they enjoyed the process. And when you're confused, you never enjoy the process. It's too
Yeah,
scary.
that's true.
It's
That's
too.
true.
I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee so I can ignore this, or something. Or I'm gonna open my browser and I'm gonna do something else besides what
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be doing here. And so we all do that. So I mean, so that's kind of my heart. That's my. I keep thinking that Lambert Learning is all about everybody, but more and more, it's more about the people first starting out. I
Yeah.
really want to help. I would like to double that. I would like to, rather than say 50% of the people leaving the first year from business continuity, another 50% the second year. So we only got 25% of the people. And I think that's a high figure actually by the end of the second year, that, 50% of the people 2 years out and beyond, at least we'll do a couple of 3 years. Because no matter what other job that you have, the skills, the competencies, what you learn in implementing business continuity is only going to help. Because like we mentioned, ambiguity, teamwork, communications, collaboration, all those other kind of things are going to help you no matter what job you have moving forward, especially
Yeah.
if you're somewhat wanting some kind of management or leadership position, no matter what you're doing outside of business continuity. So I think it would help everyone's career, and I'd really like to see people hang around a little bit longer.
And I think that's a great spot to end.
All right. Thank you,
Phil,
buddy.
Phil, thanks so much for joining us and recording. We had 2 long sessions. I'm glad we actually cut it into 2 parts.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
It was great. It was great to finally meet you actually in Louisville, and I'm glad you agreed to come on the show.
That was a
and
good
talk
time.
about this.
I'm still reeling in the good time we had in Louisville.
And I really hope a lot of the newer people in the industry listen to both of these episodes, because you gave some great insights and resources for them to help move them forward and stay interested in the industry. So I really hope they take note of all the things that you provided us today. And
thank you, Alex, for having me. I appreciate it. And good luck on all of this kind of things. I know you're doing well, and I think this is crucial to the industry in helping us, what I call, raise the bar to the next level.
Oh, I love doing this. So,
and
any way I can contribute, I will.
Okay. And anything I can contribute later on, 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, just let me know and I'll be more than happy to help.
Oh, be careful. Be careful what you wish for.
I'm here to help others to be successful. That's my number one goal.
I'm here.
And if I can help them with all the things and bloody noses that I've had over the last 25 years or so, then I'm going to make their life a little bit easier, and that's satisfying. And I'm really grateful that I'm doing actually what I'm doing.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So thanks again, Phil. I
Okay,
really
buddy.
appreciate you
All
sharing
right.
your time and expertise today.
You got it. All right.
And to everybody watching,
Yep.
stay prepared, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.